So I think we are, let's see, let me check. I think we are live. Okay, Assalamualaikum, brother Muhammad. Welcome back. How are you?
Wa alaikum assalam wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, brother Maruf. MashaAllah, as always, Jumu'ah is the best day of the week. So can't say there's something to be upset about. So alhamdulillah, it's all good. How are things on your end?
Sounds good. Today in July in Toronto, it's a bit cloudy, it's getting colder, but it shouldn't affect our mood, hopefully. And so let's get started. I think we are starting a bit late today, 5 minutes late. Okay, Bismillah. So I'm gonna share with you the being a host, so you can take it away. And today we have a very interesting topic: how to communicate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So Bismillah. You are the host now. You can go ahead.
All right, Jazakallah khairan. All right, for those of you tuning in for the first time, just wanted to say welcome. This is Kalam, and it's all about leveling up your communications based on the Quran and the Sunnah. Now, if you were with us from day one, mashallah, we tackled a lot of inner dialogue. It's all about communication with yourself. And generally speaking, we split up communication into three parts. One is communication with yourself. The second is communication with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And last but not least is communication with others. So we tackled that first batch. We tackled that first bit of communicating with yourself. And there's a whole lot of stuff that goes on there. But now at this point, we're going to be communicating with our Creator. Now, how do we communicate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? At the end of the day, you know, everyone has their own relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But on the outset, everybody lives with himself or herself. So at the end, now what we're going to do things a little bit differently though. In today's session, we're going to try to have a high level approach. Now we can easily dive deeper into all the different categories here. But in this case, we want to give you like an overview, bird's eye view of the communication with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So consider this, think of it as a crash course of sessions 5 to 8, grabbing some gems along the way and food for thought. So without further ado, let's begin. The agenda, we broke it down into 4 parts, mashallah, with the help of Brother Maruf. And the first part is shukr. Second part is fiqh. Third part is dhikr. And fourth part is sabr. What on earth do each of these things mean? What on earth are we going to be talking about? Well, we're going to find out right here, right now, inshallah. So shukr. Essentially, what is your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Now, I'm sure you can agree with me, Brother Maruf, that everyone has their own unique relationship with our Creator. Not everyone has the same level of relationship. And the good news is that you can always improve a relationship. Now, maybe things might seem abstract because we're dealing or discussing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like we cannot see that our Creator, the unknown, right? And so it's not the same as when you're having a relationship with your spouse, relationship with your friends, relationship with your colleagues, relationship with your sons, your daughters, what have you. This is a totally different, dimension altogether. But having said that, there are some things that you and I can do to look at, in the business world, you may have been familiar with something called KPIs, right? The key performance indicators. So when you have a company, when you have an organization, there are certain areas that you always want to look at to check to make sure the pulse is healthy. If something isn't going right, then you know that there needs to be a change. So having said that, in the first place, why is it even relevant in the first place to discuss our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? You see, if you and I don't take this time from time to time, maybe on a daily basis, if we don't stop and smell the roses, as they say, if we don't stop and actually acknowledge where do we stand with our Creator, you will find that days just keep on passing you by and you won't know, right? For instance, if someone wants to have certain fitness goals, if that person never stepped foot on a scale, if that person never took a look in the mirror, if that person never bothered to take any tests, how will they know where they want to go, right? Whether you're overweight or underweight, or malnourished in certain nutrients or not. We're just looking at things as they are. And subhanAllah, one humble reminder directly from the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is directly communicating with us, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala simply saying, remember me, I will remember you. Now, let me hit the pause button for a second here. And Brother Maruf, I invite you to join in on this. Like, is it easy for us to get swept up in the dunya? Is it easy for us to get caught up and to forget our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What's your take on this whole relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
That's a good one. I mean, is it easy to get swept in? The answer is clear. It's easy. We forget, right? And I think so. One of the things I am discovering for myself is that whenever as a Muslim we feel stressed, whenever as a Muslim we feel anger or sadness and all those things for a very long period of time, we have to really look inside ourselves and see, where do I stand? What I mean by that is, if you remember, also also mentions in the Quran that every person is born in a state of fitrah, right? The natural soul's natural disposition, where we are more inclined towards good, we are in a state of flow. So in the long period of time when we are feeling depressed or sadness and angry and all these things, it means we are not in our natural disposition, right? So it means somehow or something, it kind of derailed us from our natural state to something else. What I mean by that is, I mean, it's a big topic to go into, but ideally, as a human, our soul, our state fluctuates, right? Sometimes we go up, sometimes we go down. It's like all the time it's fluctuating. So the cure for that is, as you mentioned, that we have to remember the reality. It's like the movie in Matrix, right? You have to remember you are in simulation. It's not real. Because too many things we just take it personally. It's just happening to me, and this and that. And the thing is, like, as you say, life is not happening to you, but life is happening for you, right? So whatever you're seeing simulation, whatever the life is a test, or the way we take it, it is what it is. It is a test. When good things happen to us, we say Alhamdulillah, which is shukr, right? When the bad things happen, we say also Alhamdulillah, it's sabr. And the key is to understand this fine difference. And I think that the number one constant that doesn't change in this game is that we have to remember why we do. Remember where destination, where we're going. And as a Muslim, alhamdulillah, we believe that destination, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And once we remember that, it's like a GPS. It's just gonna recalibrate, resets our position and say, okay, look, I'm just getting too much attention right now. I just have to. It's like playing a game. You can play in the first person, like you see, or you can just zoom it out and you can see your character. Oh, that's the character. That's the guy who's being affected. But I'm not that necessarily character. I have to be smarter, right? I have to be up, and I have to understand the reality going on, and everything is a part of test. That's my way to look into it anyway.
MashaAllah, man. Like, again, this can all get very philosophical, and I hear you loud and clear. Like when you mentioned there's ups and downs. You mentioned the very beginning, today's cloudy, maybe tomorrow's sunny, and in Canada up here, it can get snow. You can experience all 4 seasons in one day. SubhanAllah, no exaggeration. So, at the end of the day, like you mentioned, when it comes to your relationship with Allah, it's always you have to calibrate it. And so, one humble way that you and I and the viewers can look at it. I mentioned key performance indicators. Wouldn't it be nice, instead of just guessing an abstract term, what's your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Wouldn't it be nice if we can figure out a way, how do we know where we stand? And one simple way is to look at your relationship with salah. And my relationship with salah. Again, am I sitting here saying that I'm absolutely perfect? Of course not. We all have room to improve. But it's a very good indication. How is your relationship with salah? And you're going to see it's going to show up again. It's going to crop up again in this discussion. How integrated or how intertwined is the salah? But let me just expand just a little bit more on how does that relate to your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? If you look at the salah as a chore, you look at it as a to-do list. Oh, great. What time is the adhan? Now with daylight savings time, it's almost every 2 hours. Huh? Oh, it's Dhuhr, and now it's Jumu'ah. Oh, okay. Then after, before you know it, it's Asr. Oh, great. And then, oh man, it's Maghrib again. Oh, I can't even sit still for a few. So if that's the attitude, then what do you think is going to be your, like, does someone, I mean, imagine if you were like, let's just hypothetically put it on to your spouse or to someone, if you have a regular meeting, oh, great, I got to meet. Would the opposite person feel like you value them? Or instead, if you say, you know what, I'm looking forward, oh, great, I have another opportunity to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Although Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always with us, this is my chance to have that formal meeting, you can say. I get to meet Allah. You know, when you meet someone and you really truly enjoy their company, it's a lot different than someone's like, oh, great, here we go again, right? Or if someone just completely abandons it, that's another different story. If someone's saying that, you know what, salah is not for me, it's not really my taste, and I don't need it.
All I have to do is just if I believe that's okay,
yeah.
That's good enough for me.
Yeah, that's it. Like, so at the end, that's just one simple way to look at it. So at the end, one key performance indicator you can say with your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is shukr, is salah. And that's one way that we can look and calibrate with that. Now, fiqh, using revelation for answers. What does this have to do with our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and communicating with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? I've said this once and I'll say it again. If you want to talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, pray. If you want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to talk to you, read the Quran, right? And so many times people look at revelation as outdated. It is something in the past. It has absolutely nothing to do with today's society. I mean, we got 21st century science and what have you, medicine, all that stuff, and, you know, philosophers. And so we don't, like, this religion or this particular Quran is, you know, it's in prehistoric times. Now,
they call Asatirul Awwaleen, stories of the previous generation, right?
SubhanAllah, there you go. What a nice tie-in. So even back then, they said that this is the old tales and this is not related to our day-to-day. So SubhanAllah, just goes to show how timeless the Quran is. Now, the question is that, you know, people always say, read the Quran, recite the Quran. But how do you actually use the Quran? Like, I think that's a really worthwhile conversation to have. And one way I would say is at least pointing to the right direction, or at least pointing to a resource. And there's a few resources right at your disposal. Again, I'm just doing this from my own volition, mashallah. Dr. Mustafa Khattab doesn't know about this. I'm just promoting this just to say, subhanAllah, if it wasn't for his amazing work, I wouldn't be saying this. So subhanAllah, he's done a phenomenal job. For any English speaking folks, you know, you have the clear Quran. And what one beautiful distinction of this particular translation is that it fills in a lot of gaps. You're going to get a lot of footnotes. You're going to get a lot of historical, geographical knowledge. You can see it for yourself. Visit the clear Quran. Let's just say you got some kids and you want to introduce them to the Quran, but let's just say, oh, the resources available aren't necessarily enticing for little ones. Here's the clear Quran for kids. Brother Maruf, I believe you have this. You do.
Yes.
Mr.
Hatta, give me as a gift, mashallah. Alhamdulillah.
And
we read this with the kids. Yeah.
Yeah. Could you just maybe a little bit just to say, like, how has your kids responded to this? Has it been?
Yeah, I think one of the things about this, especially the clear Quran for kids, is that you want to introduce the Quran to your kids. But I think, to be honest, the Quran is, I mean, you need to achieve a certain age to not to read Quran necessarily. I mean, you can read the Quran anytime you want, especially in Arabic, but to start to comprehend, right? It applies for every book. But however, one of the things I like about this one for kids is that it gives you backstories, it gives the words of wisdom, and especially with different stories, it makes the kids relatable. Yesterday, for example, we're reading about Surah An-Nasr, right? And where Mr. Khattab was relating how the kids could be beautiful, like a really good potential if you give them the resources and the support. and my kids were listening to, yeah, that's true. Like they were saying, okay, it's like, you have to be on the side of kids, etc. So what I'm saying is like, mashallah, I mean, I can personally vouch for this book. It's a good one. It's a good one to sit down and read with especially with kids. Like it's a 1 page or 2 page, per surah, but different stories, backstory of the surah, from Sirah, from the tafsir point of view. Then you read the surah. It's very beautiful. I mean, I encourage with any Muslim families, if you want to spend good time with the kids, this could be, this is one of the books. Absolutely.
MashaAllah, there you go again. And you mentioned stories, thinking like a kid. You got to be able to, really make it as enticing as possible. So there you go. And as well, we also have the Clear Quran Dictionary right here by Dr. Mustafa Khattab as well, for those who really are linguistically inclined, for those who really want to get into the deep dive of where the certain origins of words, where do they come from, and understanding the subhanAllah. So why am I saying this is that using revelation for answers, at least pointing to this as a resource, you have the Clear Quran for kids, and you got the Clear Quran Dictionary. It fills in a lot of gaps, and you can find a lot of those answers that otherwise may not have existed. And one more thing I will suggest and recommend, I've seen this floating around online. It's a really, really unique way of looking at revelation. Now, to set this up, sometimes people might look at, I mentioned that a lot of folks might look at the Quran as prehistoric, outdated. It doesn't solve my problems. And so in this case, in this particular little image I saw floating around, this actually addresses problems right from the get-go. And it's this. May have seen something similar to this around, right? The idea is, take a look at a number of different problems here, right? You're sad. There's an ayah for that. You have sinned. There's an ayah for that. I'll leave it to you to do the treasure hunting to find out what does Surah Al-Baqarah ayah number 25 say about if you're sad, right? You're seeking love. How many folks who are yearning for that companion? All right, what about this? Or what if someone is depressed? This is one of the things in the 21st century that, it's there. People always fight with you. All right, double assurance. Point being is that there are answers. So instead of if you run into a certain issue, instead of running to different sources, look, the Quran, you have it all. It's all in here. So need advice? These are some number of different problems, and their solutions.
When we're talking about the fikr, right? Tafakkur, we would call it in Quran, tafakkur, tadabbur. So one of the things I've noticed in myself is that if you're reading a Quran, so that's what we do usually is that we just sometimes read in masjid. I'm just a witness in Muslims, right? Read in Arabic, we want to do a tilawah. I have nothing against tilawah, we have to do tilawah, but however, just keeping in mind, about 80 to probably 90% of the Muslims do not speak Arabic. What they are doing is just reading the Arabic. We don't understand, right? And that's so crucial to understand. How can we learn anything from the book if you're just reading in Arabic? Yes, we'll benefit. I'm not questioning. There will benefit. There are other unseen benefits to your soul, to your mindset. But at the same time, imagine reading a book in Chinese or Urdu, like without understanding the language. Just reading the alphabet doesn't make sense much, right? So what I'm saying is that, look, I understand, and at the same time, we are all busy. I'm not asking everybody to learn Arabic, even though it's good for you. So what you could do is that read the Clear Quran or other translations of Quran. So what you could do though is like, well, if you do a tilawah 1 page, just read the translation of that page. And when you're reading, one of the du'as you can make at the beginning is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, open my heart, mind, open my soul to get to understand the wisdoms in these lines. And so I can implement in my life, right? That's the benefit. Otherwise, why are we reading the Quran? Just keep reading the Arabic version. And then one of the things also coming to mind when it comes to the tafakkur is that there are patterns in Quran. The Quran is cyclical, and you will see some verses coming again and again. And one of those verses is that there are signs for people who understand. There are signs for people who understand. And you will begin to see these patterns everywhere. And this is what it is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving us signs in the book, right? Even the ayah means signs. Signs for us to understand. Not just barely read the in Arabic part, but actually read it, comprehend it, understand it, and just go out and do. So sometimes the tafakkur is not only just reading the Quran. You look around. Everything you see is a sign. They are screaming at you and saying, what are they screaming about is as a sign that there is a creator. Look at the stars, look at the clouds, look at the trees. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, were you the creator? Were you created from nothing, or were you the creator? And we know it doesn't make sense. Nothing comes out of nothing, or we're not the creators. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is omitting the third question. So who was the creator? So you have to think. It's just the Quran actually challenges all of us to think, to do fikr on a continuous basis. But we have to be ready though. We have to be ready we have to read with understanding, and we have to come with the right intention. If you come to Quran with the intention of finding, like some people do, but whatever the reasons is that, so clear your intention and come to Quran and try to understand. And it should be also continuous basis. It's not like if you read once a time, you're good, you're one. No, it's like, I read it's a daily habit. Even it's as little as 5 minutes. Once you begin to do that, you will see the benefits. It's just a matter of weeks, you'll begin to see the benefits. Those things that, remember I mentioned about, you begin to understand the game. Like, you say, oh, okay, that's what's going on. That's what's going on. So instead of getting angry, being in the moment, you don't worry about what people say, because that's not the ultimate goal. That's not ultimate reality. It's just everything is a part of that. No one is ultimately good or bad. Everybody is trying to live their life, and sometimes they will touch you. Touch on your nerves, and that's also part of the game. So that's how you move on. I just want to mention this fikr part. So if you think the Quran is an old book, that's okay. That's up to you. I guess that's your loss. You can also look at it from the other angle as well.
MashaAllah, Brother Maruf. Yes, it's what you make of it, right? And speaking of which, like when you mentioned how it's not enough just to, it's not like it's like working out or drinking a glass of water. You don't just drink a glass of water and say, oh, I don't need to drink it again because yesterday I just drank it. Well, or you ate yesterday, so I don't need to eat again.
Exactly the same point.
The beautiful thing about the Quran is no matter how many times you read the same surah, the same ayah over and over and over and over again, you'll always draw something new. And subhanAllah, with today, like on Jumuah, Surah Al-Kahf, oh my gosh, I remember I heard this, this way of looking at the 4 stories, and like with the story of Musa alayhi salam, oh my gosh, you get blown away every single time. So there's always something for everything. And again, these are the 3 resources at your disposal. And mashallah, it's amazing. Using revelation for answers. It's all about how you look at revelation. If you're looking at revelation as just something on the shelf that you read the Arabic, yes, you'll get benefit from it. But if you don't internalize it, you don't look at it as my counsel, my way of finding direction, my GPS, so to speak, then that's all it's going to be. But if you look at it and say, no, I know this book has something for me. I know I'm going through some pain and trouble, but I know deep down inside there is something in there. You get what you look for, right? So, mashallah. Now, third part, we talked about prayer already. Why is it so important that it has its own category here? Dhikr, right? Connecting with prayer. It's one of the 5 pillars of our faith for a reason. And when it comes to prayer, let me just jump into this analogy that Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam so eloquently put, and we'll see how it connects to our day-to-day. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam taught us this, that if a person had a stream outside let me just move this over, had a stream outside his door, and he bathed in it 5 times a day, do you think he would have any filth left on him? The people said no filth would remain on him whatsoever. The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam then said, that is like the 5 daily prayers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wipes away the sins by them. So one of the things here that to keep in mind is that we're still connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're all communicating to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So first and foremost, we got to recognize that this is a prescription from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I can, like Brother Maruf, mashallah, you give me a gift. Let's say you give me a nice Rolex. All right. That's great. I'll know maybe intuitively to say thank you, and maybe I will give you a gift back, and that's my way of saying thanks. But Brother Maruf, what if you were to tell me and say, hey, you know what, Brother Muhammad, that's all nice, but I'll tell you how you really want to thank me. Here's how you can thank me. Now, if I was someone that was really receptive and somebody who was really, really indebted to this gift, or really who was appreciative of this gift, would I not take your advice as to how exactly I could thank you, right? Otherwise, you might, this is the same situation of folks might say, yeah, you know, prayer is good, but I have my own way of giving thanks. Smiling is charity, right? So I don't need to give zakah. This is the same mindset where that might happen, but at the end of the day, that's one thing, right? This whole gift of life is a gift, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us the way to thank. But the key here in relation to this hadith particularly, how many people feel guilty about their own misdeeds? I'm including myself in this conversation. Are we all angels? No, we're not. There are skeletons in everyone's closet, right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is merciful. If people say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala isn't merciful, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just out to get you, the whole point of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's being is to throw us all in Jahannam. If that was the case, then why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bother to give us a way out, to give us a way to continuously make tawbah, to continuously make repentance and wipe away sins? So this particular hadith is really geared for folks who might say that I'm a hopeless case, I'm a lost cause, I've done so much wrong in my life, why would God even bother to speak with me, right? So Brother Maruf, can you speak on this? What do you say to someone who, let's say, isn't in the best shape, and they felt like they've done so much unspeakable acts of wrong that they think that they're beyond the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that prayer isn't going to do anything? I'm going to wash myself for a few bit, just go up and down, and what does that have to do with anything? How is that going to solve my pain?
So one of the things we have to remember again with dhikr is it's very simple. Like it took me personally to figure this out for a long time. There's a hadith, I can't remember the exact quote, but you can find out. I think it's Bukhari. I think the Prophet ﷺ says, like, we look at prophets, especially our prophets, to be one of the perfect examples of humankind. Not without any sins, but I mean role models, right? And even he, peace be upon him, who says, I will not enter Jannah because of my deeds. Right? You've heard this hadith. So from that analogy, if you do fikr, if you think about it, if the Prophet ﷺ cannot enter Jannah only because of his deeds, but accept the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then the question goes, who are we, right? To assume that we go to Jannah because of our deeds. So one thing we have to understand, we do not deserve Jannah because of what we do. No matter what you do, even like you, Brother Muhammad, or I, or anybody who's listening to this, if they do a prayer, let's say salah, sajda, from the moment you are born, from the moment you die, put your head on the ground without ever lifting, that will not be enough. So the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on us is way beyond that. So the first point is to understand this. It's not about what we do. It's not about if at one point we'll become like, oh, now it's good. No. So it says in the hadith, it's the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And so if that is the case, first we have to be like, go easy on us. And you have to think, where does this thought come from? And say, oh, I am not good enough, just give up. Where do you think this thought is coming from? Is it coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Or is it coming from somewhere else? And what's the end result? That whatever that thought comes from is they want to give up. Who wants to give up? Who is your real enemy? Think about it. It says in the Quran, your real enemy is the outcast, the one who wants to derail us from the path, right? Because he wants to give us this thoughts like being righteous, like, oh, you're not perfect enough, you're always with sins. Why bother? Give up. And where does it come from? Right? We have to be aware of. That's what I'm saying. It's like first thing is like being aware of what's going on. Not ever just going after each thought, say, okay, that's coming up. Like, so we know from the Quran, we know from the Hadith that those kind of bad thoughts, they come from the shaitan, right? Just they want us to give up. He wants us to be envious, who wants to be jealous, wants to hate someone or do something, impulses, everything. So once we know, all we have to do, we also have a cure. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, all we have to say with intention, real, sincere belief, not like just, but you have to say it as a robotic, but to say, A'udhu billah minash shaitanir rajim. I seek refuge in Allah from the shaitan, because I have to remember. That. That is the thought coming from. I also have to remember, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was this kind of personality, like I'm thinking, like sitting there saying, yes, Muhammad, or Maruf, you did this bad thing, you're going, no. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has so many beautiful names. He could have said, I am Al-Qawi, I am Al-Jabbar, I am Al-Qahar, right? But no. In every surah, he begins with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most kind, the most caring. Right? He's seeing it like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his own wisdom, like he knows that these thoughts will come. But in every beginning of every surah, in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most kind, the most caring. Why? Because we have to remember that. It's not our deeds. It's not our deeds that take us somewhere. No, it's just we are all on the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the one. And number two is on the prayer itself. I myself also, for a long time, when I was younger, like to be honest, that there was a lot of long periods of time I didn't pray, because I think my understanding was, a bit, I would say, messed up in a way. So, for example, the people used to tell me, you have to pray, you have to give thanks to Allah. I say, okay. But from my understanding, Allah is perfect. Does he need anything? No. But why do I have to pray? I mean, there are a lot of people are praying. Let them pray. I don't have to pray. You see this how it plays, right? The shaitan treats you. So, but what you understand, even at this moment, if everybody stopped praying, everybody, I'm talking like not only Muslims, all human beings start praying right now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it will not take away even this much from his glory or wisdom or every kingdom. Do you understand? If everybody stopped right now, if everybody stopped and didn't pray, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't need our prayer. Do we agree? He doesn't need our prayer. If he needed our prayer, imagine that there are already angels who sing his names and glory in much better way we do. Already, do we agree? So who needs prayer is us. Does that make sense? It's us who need prayer. Not because like we think like, oh, why do I have to know? So in the prayer, as you said, one of the things happening is like these four things happening, right? You're doing dhikr, you're doing shukr, you're doing fikr, tadabbur, and the sabr. Why? It's like a GPS. You're calibrating yourself. It's like witnessing. Do you remember we promised Allah, I'm going to put you in the center of my life. How do we do that? It's just calibrate, remember, remind ourselves, Allah is still in the center. If it is, why am I worried about fame? Why am I worried what other people think? If I'm going to put Allah in the center, why am I worrying about other things? It's like reminder for us, are you still on the right track? If not, as you said, Prophet ﷺ, to give a good analogy, if you're outside taking 5 times bath, right? Do you think, and it filth. So what's going on? The analogy is like you're living the life, like filth comes on, like listen, dirt comes on your ruh, right? Like in this light begins to come and put a lot of things around you. So every time we are going to a prayer is we are washing, we are polishing it, right? So making sure it shines as much as we can. So that's my. Sorry, I took a bit longer. That's my take. So the prayer is not for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I mean, not because of he needs our prayer. Of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a shakur. He's the most appreciative. Don't get me wrong, but it's not to benefit him or he needs that. He's just most appreciative, but it's us who needs the most prayer. So once you understand, as you said, it's a food. Can you imagine someone saying, you know what? I don't need food. I can survive. I can survive. How long do you think that person survives? Maybe 2-3 days, and then he collapses. As the food is so much to our body. As you know, the person is not just the body. We have the mind, we have the heart, we have the soul, we have the nerves and everything. All of these guys need their own needs. If you don't give, but trust me, those needs, they're crucial needs. They're being fed anyway. So if you're not aware of what these needs are, if you don't feed them the right things, what happens is that in the end result, you will not be happy. For example, your soul, your heart needs the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is in the dhikr, right? Remember, there's a verse in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, verily, in the remembrance of Allah, do hearts find peace. And just the recipe is right there. If you find peace, that's what we want. The joy, only remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because the soul is always attempting to go back to the source where it comes from. So that's where the thing is. If you're thinking, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if the one who created said, this is a recipe, if you say, no, I know better, I know better. So who does it remind you? Remember the story. Isn't arrogance. It's like, I know better, right? So if you think this way, if you just keep going on, you just have to watch where you're going, right? Because I think that the prayer, as I said, is just food for your soul and heart, eventually, and even mind, actually. So this is the crucial food you have to take. And if you think you can do better, well, you got your instructions, and it's on you. Where you're going to end up, it's going to be on you, not anybody else.
Yeah, you're right. So a lot of spiritual nourishment, and mashallah, when it comes to the like, well, I guess what we're trying to do is say what the finish line is, like the 5 daily prayers and what you make the most of it. If you look at it as just a chore, abandon it completely, try to find it elsewhere. There are plenty of people who've tried doing that before, plenty, right? And so the examples are countless. And yet, if you go back, the finish line is, look, the ultimate conclusion is that our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the prayer. It's there's countless hadiths that relate to that, right? And subhanAllah, speaking of shaitan, just to tie that in, it reminds me of another hadith that every time you and I make sajda, we put our foreheads to the ground, shaitan cries. Shaitan cries. And why? Because the very same blessing that we've been given and the honor that we've been given, shaitan arrogantly turned away from that. If we submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we free ourselves from any other, whatever sort of things that we can be enslaved to, right? And at the end of the day, if we submit, we just surrender, say, you know what? I'm a human being. Like you mentioned, if I challenge the creator and say, you know what? Oh, I can go on for, a whole month without food and water. Okay. I mean, not advising against that, but at the end of the day, we're all
You cannot survive for the whole month without food and water. How can you survive? I think without food, probably maximum a week. From water, I'm not sure if you can survive more than 3 days. You just body collapse. That's it.
So
forget about months.
Yeah, forget about no, I'm saying that the whole idea when it comes to folks who are challenging, I guess in one way to summarize it, it could be like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests us, we don't test Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah. A lot of people, they want to try to challenge the creator. Oh, well, let me show it said this, and time and time again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just again, if we open this Quran, you and I, all of us, just spend some time to reflect how many civilizations in the past have tried. It's just gonna go nowhere. So the finish line is this, and you come to it at your own volition, your own conclusion. And last but not least, in this whole discussion, is holding on to the rope. This is sabr. Now, what does this have to do? Holding on to what rope? The rope of Allah subhanahu, the rope of faith. Times get tough. Life isn't easy, especially now with the COVID-19 pandemic. People lost their jobs, lost their family members. They've lost sight of themselves. Things get spiral out of control. And so how can you and I hold on to this faith? And why do people leave the faith in the first place? And one answer that comes to play is when we lose sight of the ultimate goal. And Brother Maruf, you touched on this, which is when what are we here for, and where's our ultimate destination? If we're just relying on the dunya for our ultimate pleasure and our ultimate, if our whole world is just this world, then it's easy to lose sight. People will abandon you. People are gonna, are gonna betray you. The creation isn't gonna help sustain you, right? There's gonna be natural disasters. The creation in of itself isn't going to going to sustain and give you all that you wanted. But if we always calibrate our goals to the heavens and say, inshallah, day of judgment, that we're on the good side, that we're all good and ready to go, that's what it is. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly tells us this in Surah Al-Luqman. Surely those who believe and do good will have the gardens of bliss, staying there forever. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's promise is true, and He is the Almighty, All-Wise. When you and I lose sight of this, that's why we lose this hope of the rope. If we forget why things happen, if we forget why we're here, if we forget where the whole idea, this is just a bridge, things are temporary. Yes, people are going to betray you. Yes, people are going to abandon you. Yes, your money is not going to be where you want it to be. Yes, your health isn't what it's going to be. Yes, the dunya isn't going to be in your favor. Yes, that traffic light is going to turn red when you want it to turn green. At the end of the day, if we lose sight of why we're here, then it's easy for people to just throw their hands up in the air and say, oh, what's the whole point? This is all useless, and forget all this and just, that's it. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us and anchoring us and saying, reminding us day in and day out, those who believe, fair weather faith doesn't go far. It's easy to believe when things are going smoothly. It's the true test of when things aren't going your way. How well do you and I behave, right? You believe and do good, staying there forever. This world is temporary. What's the average life expectancy? You can look it up. Human beings aren't here for, they say even the sun, the sun in all its glory, the sun has a limit in terms of how much it can stand. Maybe it'd be millions of years, thousands, I'm not sure what the number is. The sun in and of itself can't. So, or the earth, like in all the things, like everything has its limits, subhanAllah. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us something that's going to last forever. If we hold on to
everything has a beginning, has an end.
Exactly. So at the end of the day, Allah, and this is the last key here that I want to highlight, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's promise is true. How many times in your life have you been let down? Somebody promised you something and it wasn't true. Somebody promised you goodness, riches, what have you, and you've been let down time and time again. So it is a real thing that people might have trust issues. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that, look, people will abandon you, people will let you down, you're going to be disappointed. I heard it been put by Shakespeare that expectation is the root of all disappointment. Man, those are wise words, wouldn't you say? If we expect you to have my back and then you don't have it, guess what? Oh, and then just throw your hands up in the air. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, no, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's promise is true. And it's only for those who believe. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among those to remain firm in our faith. That's what sabr comes in. Holding on to the rope. Holding on to things, holding on to that rope of faith when things aren't going your way or my way. Because what's the whole point? What's the nobility and everything going right? You have everything you ever wanted and then you hold on. It doesn't make sense, right? What kind of a hero story is that? So at the end of the day,
that reminds me the verse from Quran, I think, or I don't remember the hadith. Do they think they will not be tested, and the generations before them were tested? Right? It's the same. Like, what's the point if there is no test?
It's in Surah Al-Ankabut. You're right, mashallah. You got it. Yeah. Do you say that you'll believe and you won't be tested? Is that how life is? Huh? Do you just walk up to any university without any sort of prerequisites and you just say, I want to get in? Is that how life works? Like, I just walk into a job and say, I want a job without any sort of process? So how come it's like that for the akhirah, but we don't do that even within the dunya? So at the end of the day, we say we have to hold on. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's promise is true. If you say, if I know nothing else, if all my knowledge is taken away from me, the one thing that I can firmly stand on, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's promise is true. It is true. You will not be let down. You've been let down before, time and time again. I'm telling you, in the entertainment industry, how many people, they said they really wanted to watch this movie and it did not live up to their expectations and they're sour beyond belief. People will let you down. They promise you, we're going to give you a raise, and that raise never came. People say that you're going to, happily ever after, till death do us part, and marriages collapse. So people will not let you, will not hold true because it's the creation. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator, the ultimate sustainer. All, like you mentioned, going to the source. So the more we dive into it with our eyes wide open, the better off we're going to be, inshallah. And so do you have any other last minute thoughts before I conclude with this?
No, I think alhamdulillah, we covered as much as we can. There's a last note I want to tell is that you may ask, like, why are we doing all this? Why are we doing the communicating part? Like, we're doing dhikr, fikr, and sabr, and all this. So, Brother Muhammad, that one of the things, my passion is to understand human psychology, like why we do what we do, because I really want to understand how we can live a better life. Like, I mean, how you can live your life to the fullest. I went far and wide and learned, I listened to a lot of books and learned. So here's what it is. To sum it up, on the one side, right now, everybody talked about the mindset, and there are some coaches, they talk about the life coaches and business coaches. As you know, there are bigger figures like Tony Robbins. As you know, I also took my certification from him, and to understand his way of thinking, other things together. What I find out is that we think as Muslims do not really appreciate what we have. We think the answer is right there, the grass is greener on the other side. We go to these gurus and all those things, they tell us, oh, be thankful, be grateful, or do meditation, it works. And we say, okay, yeah, we do, it works. You know what, most of the time, I don't say all the time, most of the time, they have figured out what works. I'm going to be honest with you, but they don't know why, because probably either they don't tell you or they don't want to go to release because it's too boo-boo, I don't want to do. You know what? All those things, what they say, it's already in the Quran. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says why it works as well. There is a verse in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and thank me and I will increase you. What is the thank? It's the shukr, and gratitude, alhamdulillah, right? Thank me and I will increase you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in the Quran itself, thank me and I am your creator, I will increase you. What does it tell you? That shukr is a part of deen. As you say, gratitude, it's called gratitude is a part of deen. And they know the how, but they don't know the why. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say the why in the Quran. It's free. You don't have to pay thousands of dollars to understand that. But you have to do tafakkur. And you have to really practice that. When we are thinking, it's not just mindless thinking. It's not saying, thanks God. No. Do tafakkur. For example, I will give you an example. Let's imagine you want to, let's say, which is very common for most of us, like you want to earn more money. Let's put it this way, right? So you may understand, I'll give thanks. Oh, thanks. No. First of all, you have to be really, you cannot trick Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He knows what's in your heart. He's closer than your jugular vein. But what you have to is that you have to find the inner peace in yourself. Whatever you are earning, first of all, make sure it's halal. Secondly, you have to be grateful. You say, Ya Allah, I am grateful. You're the Ar-Razzaq. You're the provider. You're providing from the halal source. I am making this much money. At the same time, you can be as personal as you want. There's only one entity you can complain is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can say, Ya Allah, my situation better than anybody. I'm grateful what you're making. If I had this, you have to have a good, compelling reason. Not because I want to be better. No. I could have put my son to Islamic school, or I want to help this. Or even you can give a small charity. But if you're grateful this way, watch what happens next. You understand the formula, right? Formula is this. Formula is that be grateful is that you are aware of what you're doing. You're inside grateful what you have. It doesn't work like you're not grateful. Oh, what is this? It's not fair. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it doesn't work like this. You have to be grateful, at peace what you have, and ask for help from the Ar-Razzaq and do your action. And if you can, give charity. And charity is one of those things, increases wealth. It doesn't make sense. Paradoxical. How could it be I give charity, my money going well? No, it doesn't work like that. Trust me, there's this formula which we may not be able to comprehend. But give a charity as much as you can and watch what happens. Do your action, be sincere, and you will see out of nowhere, you will begin to get deals or get another job, and it will increase. And I have seen it not in other people. I've seen it in my own life again and again and again. So what I'm telling you is that all we are talking right now, dhikr, fikr, and shukr, and sabr, there are two ways you can take it right now. If you're listening to this, you're watching this, one day you just go to the next thing on your stream. move on and giving your soul wherever you want to, or take this seriously. Go to Quran, and when you're reading, try to read these things and try to at least take one of the ideas. You don't have to take all of them; it's too much. Take one of the ideas, practice, and see what happens in your daily life in a week. And once it works, and try to implement the other one. And that's the whole point. I'm not here. I think Brother Muhammad is not here just to make a sermon and preaching to you and just move on to the next thing. It's just these are things we are saying that fast. These are the things that every guru, like self-development guru, will tell you. But at the end, it's all in Quran. It's right in front of our eyes, but we don't appreciate it. We don't practice it. To be honest, that's the sad reality for me, that most of us, we don't do that. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us those who appreciate this and open our hearts and minds and soul to accept this wisdom and implement in our lives. That's all I want for myself, for you, for all of us who want to get better at this game. That's all.
MashaAllah, Brother Maruf. MashaAllah. A lot of food for thought there. And I guess just echoing the sentiment about, for instance, about the charity, right? Giving charity, you're seeing your bank account decrease. You might think, what? It's paradoxical, but look at this. Again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's promise is true. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's promise is true. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's promise is true. You give with the pure intention that, you know what, I don't expect anything back. You're going to see it's going to return multiples. Not with that expectation of saying, giving this, but and the other.
You cannot trick. Remember, you cannot trick Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah, where are you going to run? Where are you going to hide? I mean, like, subhanAllah, you can't. You might as well be an open book with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course. Just saying, look, it is what it is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're the one who created me when I was nothing. What were you before you were born? What was I before I was born? Nothing. Like, what were we? Nothing. Like, we weren't even.
I can remember, I think even the scholar hadith that there was this thing. Since we are still discussing communication with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they say there are three ways of how we communicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. First one is out of fear. Some people are suffering. Oh, Allah will put me in hellfire. Don't have to do this. This is one way. Number two is like a merchant. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'll give you this. You will give me that.
Transactional.
Exactly, transactional. I'm going to give charity. I know people like this that say, I know you will give me. I mean, trust me, even that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is fair. He will give. The best way? What is the best way? The third one? The best way is to say, you communicate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the true ihsan, with true faith, without expecting, like I said, the love, without any attachments, like
no strings attached.
No strings attached and unconditional love. If you begin to Allah with that and that thing, of course, I'm not saying that it's easy. I'm not saying it's attainable that easy, but that's the highest level of communication. Once you do that, man, may Allah reach us those level. It will be in a different spot. We will begin to see there's a source code and everything as it is. That's the best way of communicating with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that with the ihsan, with the iman, and without putting a lot of distractions, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one thing we have to remember, I think there's also hadith, if you remember, I am what my servant thinks of me.
There you go. SubhanAllah, man. That's amazing, Brother Maruf. I appreciate that. So you got three ways: one out of fear, one like a business relationship, and the other is, look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in all your glory.
Those people, that when they're in trouble, they pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When the good times, okay, that's all fine. I'm fine. It's me who did this. On the only bad times, you'll go.
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear. But at the end of the day, again, the quality of your relationships determines the quality of your life. I've heard it put like that. So subhanAllah. So imagine if we have a solid connection and relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everything else will fall into place, inshallah. And so with that, I'd like to say again, humbly invite you all, visit kadam.ca. A little teaser for next week. Now we're gonna talk about communicating with others. Which
you see, like what communication is about, right? That's what people think.
Yeah, now we're gonna get into how we're communicating with like other human beings, inshallah. I know that's the first thing perhaps that might pop in your mind when you say communication, but we purposely put it at the end. You see how much groundwork and foundation work that we had to put in. It's like building a house. You don't just start with the third floor. You got to build that you got to dig under the ground, build that foundation so that that house can rest properly on top. And
This also,
so,
inshallah, will be the last one, right? Last session in this.
yeah, I know what to say. Same idea as this time. You know how like it was all, we kind of took a tour of the communication with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sessions. Same idea with this, another tour of communicating with others. And again, if you're watching the recording, happy to read your comments. Don't feel shy. That's what we're here for. Like, we're all about communication. So if it's a one-way street, it's not going to go anywhere. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put barakah in all our efforts. And Brother Maruf, Jazakallah khairan once again for hosting these. It's been amazing.
Can we do something before we go? I want to ask Sister Hadan's feedback if there are any questions by her or by others.
Sure.
Hope we could, like, quickly. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Hadan.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you, sister? So do you have any questions, or do you notice any questions on the other people want to ask?
No, I haven't. However, I just wanted to comment on the charity aspect of subhanallah, like in my own business, I noticed that subhanallah, whenever I give, instantly the same day, it always happens the same day, that I get the amount multiplied by so much. And subhanallah, and most of the time I wasn't even expecting it, and it just happens, and it really affirms to me, subhanallah, the
formula,
truth.
Sister, it says we just don't practice, we just don't do.
Yes, and the thing is, the times I do not practice it, I notice the opposite happens. The rizq decreases. And I will think to myself, oh, subhanallah, I haven't made any sales. What's going on? And I realized to myself, Allah is teaching me something. Allah is teaching me every time I give sadaqah. Allah is teaching me, this is what you need to do if you want to be successful, and do it with the heart that you really want to help as well. The intention is very important.
Absolutely.
And I remember listening, and I've tried to find this online, but I couldn't find it. But I listened to something once where there was a story about a brother who left, I think he left Yemen, and he went to one of the islands in the southeast. I don't know where it was. And he said when him and his mom went there, they had to leave everything behind. And he said the only thing that had value were my shoes. So what he did was, he sold his shoes and bought a bag of rice. And what he did is he bought simple slippers that he could wear at least. And he started selling the rice in smaller quantities, and he actually made a profit that way. And when he went back home, he told his mother, Alhamdulillah, I sold and this, and she told him, my son, go and give sadaqah. And he said to her, let me give sadaqah when I become, more wealthy. Like right now, I barely have anything. We barely have anything. And she said to him, give sadaqah now, even from that little. Give sadaqah now. And subhanAllah, he said, because of his mother's advice, he made it a habit to always give sadaqah. And subhanAllah, now, at that time, the brother was a multimillionaire. But he was talking about going back to the whole story of starting with the sadaqah, even when you have a little. And I remember the brother who was also relating the story, he said his marketing strategy is sadaqah. That is his marketing strategy.
It's a beautiful strategy.
Yeah, and I've tried to implement that with myself. Sometimes I do forget, subhanallah, the shaitan makes us forget, but this was a beautiful reminder. Just wanted to share that.
And also there's a difference to give 2 pennies when you have only 10, and giving 2 pennies when you have 1 million, right? So there's a huge difference. You know what I mean? When you have so little and you're giving, or sometimes, it could be a huge difference. Absolutely. So there you go, Brother Muhammad, as I told you. It's not something like theories. It's just the practice. You just have to practice, man. It's just right here. It just works. We just have to put it into practice.
If I can add another story,
Sure.
When I was my first job, subhanallah, when I was a kid, I was working as a cashier at Kentucky Fried Chicken, and my grandmother found out. And my grandmother at the time, and right now she still lives in overseas, and she said, send me something from your money that you made. And at that time, I didn't think it was anything significant, so little. And I said, Grandma, I didn't make that much money to be sending you gifts, and because when you think about gifts, you want to give something good to someone, like something worthy of giving. She said, no, whatever it is, send me something. And then she said to me something that I never forgot. She said, the person who gives from the little is the same person who gives when they have more. So make it a habit to give.
Beautiful reminder.
SubhanAllah.
Beautiful
Jazakumullah.
Thank you very much for that, sister. So thank you very much for everyone watching. You want to say any last words, Brother Muhammad, to conclude this?
MashaAllah. Again, Sister Horan, Jazakallah khair for bringing those stories to life, to really solidify a lot of things that we talked about here today. Communication with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you put Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first, you'll never be last. That's it. Put Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first, you'll never be last. At any point, how many times do we get caught up with the dunya? I'm including myself in this conversation. Weeks get busy, days get busy, times get busy. How many times do we forget to say Bismillah before we eat? It can be as simple as that. But at the end of the day, the more we put Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the forefront, you will never be last. You have faith, you do your best, you leave the rest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's promise is always, always true. And if we can internalize that, who knows where you're going to go, inshallah. So thank you, Brother Maruf. Thank you, Sister Hudan. Inshallah, until next time, communicating with others is coming up next week. Visit kalam.ca for more. Barakallahu feek. Have a wonderful Jummah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.